Hey there, it's Ben Hyde here for BCC Hardware, and today we're taking a look at the Rosewill RNX-AC750 wireless router. This is a dual band AC router, so it's the new 802.11 AC, and while it's not the fastest AC spec around, you'll see that this router is actually pretty darn robust. So we're just going to take a quick look around the interface today so you guys can understand what this is about. Instead of taking a million pictures and typing pages of data, we'll give you a first-hand look at what makes this router interesting from Rosewill. First off, one thing that I kind of do like is the fact that alongside the main screen here in your side menu navigation is a help page right alongside, and this is actually in a table, which is maybe not the coolest, but it's actually very useful. So right off the bat, you've got your status, what kind of network modes you've got going on here, and of course you can jump into quick setup and walk you through basically just a wizard to get you up and running. We're going to skip that though and take you to some of the more interesting features, including your WAN setup, whether it's dynamic, static, L2TP or PPTP, or whichever, the standard stuff there. And as far as you're setting up your local network, you can specify things like IGMP snooping, and if you don't know what that is, hey, guess what? It's right off to the side here, which again is really handy. So set up your IP address, your subnet, and you're off to the races. And of course, they still do support MAC address cloning for older ISPs that kind of do things in a weird way, but that'll help you get going. Now, as far as dual band goes here, you can choose what bands you're going to be using, whether you're going to be using the 2.4 or the 5. Kind of nifty that you can actually just checkbox shut one band off. Of course, if you want maximum performance, leave both enabled. As we move on to the wireless settings here, we can do basic things like name your SSID, choose what region you're in. Of course, changing that region will allow you to have a certain number of channels or specific channels that maybe aren't available in one region. As you can see here, we've already set it up with on the 2.4 gigahertz band. We're setting up the 11 BGN mixed with our wireless security. There's some options there: WPA, WPA2. With either the standard encryption algorithms and that sort of thing. So wireless MAC filtering, you can do crazy things like right built into the stock firmware, wireless advanced settings, including how much power you want to transmit through your wireless network. If you don't need a huge area, well, you can back that down so maybe your neighbors across the street aren't leeching your Wi-Fi. Of course, if you need to reach that far corner of your house in the basement, crank that up to high right there. Super simple, and those settings are pretty much mirrored through the 5 gigahertz band as well. And of course, you can enable WPS or disable it, whichever you prefer. Ease of use, of course, is enabled. It's not the most secure thing, so maybe you do want to disable that. But again, same features pretty much identically on the 5 gigahertz band is the 2.4 gigahertz band as well. Moving on to guest network now, we see that we can actually have some interesting guest network things that kind of blew my mind. Right off the bat, you can choose, instead of just guest network, which goes to either just the internet or your file shares, you kind of want to isolate that. You can choose to allow, even though you have a guest network, allow access to your network. Enable, disable. Then you can allow access to USB storage sharing, which is USB storage sharing on this device. Enable or disable. Guest network isolation, so guests can't talk to each other. Bandwidth control, and the coolest thing here is you can choose which band you're doing this guest network for, and even sit there and say, okay, we're going to apply this wireless schedule to each day of the week, and we're gonna just pick and choose. Okay, so Tuesday at 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock, we're gonna specify here, so every hour the wireless network goes off, or whichever. Of course, ideally you're gonna do that for your kids that are staying up way too late on the internet, and you want to sit there and disable the internet after certain times. So that's kind of what that is for. Super cool. Just check the boxes, hit save, done. DHCP settings, of course, you can enable or disable the server. Most people are going to leave it enabled. You can look at your client list and reserve addresses. That's pretty standard stuff. Now when it comes to USB, this router does have a USB 2 port, and you can actually plug in a USB drive, flash drive, or an external hard drive, that sort of thing. And then you have some choices here. You can create user accounts, so specific user accounts will be allowed to access it, enable sharing, create an FTP server, or your DLNA enabled multimedia server just off of a flash stick. So that's pretty cool for sharing files that across the network, watching movies, whatever you want to do. Just plug into a router. You don't need an expensive NAS if you're just doing light file sharing. This can take control of it. So that's that. On to forwarding, virtual server, port triggering, DMZ. That stuff is all very basic, but yet it is just really well laid out here with the side menu. You want to talk forwarding, it shows you all the different types of forwarding: UPnP, DMZ, port triggering, virtual server. Now down to security. We can either. It makes sense. They've done such a good job here. Super clean interface. Basic security gives you your basic options. Advanced security. Now we're talking ICMP flood attack filtering. It does DDoS filtering as well. And you can, manage log stuff, attacks and everything else. You can just log those as well. Parental controls, super, super robust parental controls. Again, I really love this interface for enabling days of the week, time slots, for allowing these parental controls or disallowing them. Let's say you have a shared computer, you want to block all of the internet from it for your kids when they're home from school, but when dad's working at night off the same computer, you can actually automatically schedule those parental controls not to apply during specific times. I love that feature. Very, very cool. Access control, of course, this is just internet access control to the router itself. And just lots of different things here you can do, and you can schedule access control to the device, to other connected devices, all through very easy click interface. And of course, again, if you need any help, just make sure you check out the right hand side there and get the help you need. Bandwidth control, pretty cool. It's pretty standard as well, but it shows your ingoing and outgoing bandwidth, and you can specify what that is, and then you can add rules. It says, okay, Daddy's gaming, he gets all the bandwidth for Call of Duty, and you get nothing for Skyping with your friends. That's just fair. I'm paying the internet bill. Also, we've got IP, MAC binding. Just so many nifty things that maybe you didn't even think you needed. Most of the stuff comes in very expensive routers or aftermarket firmware like DDWRT or Tomato, and it's all right here built in. Your system tools include diagnostics, firmware updates, backup and restoring the settings, rebooting, changing password, logging everything in the system, and more. And again, this is just from a very inexpensive router. Currently about $65 on Newegg for this Rosewill, the RNX-AC750RT. Super robust, and it has been rock solid here for the last, about a month here at BCC HQ South. It's been flawless. So if you're in the market for a router and you don't want to spend, $300, this isn't the fastest router, but it certainly has a lot of features that you may find interesting and that may fit the bill better than the competition. Thanks for checking out the web interface here on the Rosewill RNX-AC750RT. We will catch you next time.